So at this point, we have all three of our images reduced to a selection with all negative space removed. As you can see, I'm struggling a little bit because I'm forgetting to choose the actual layer that I'm trying to move around. But I can now take the amulet, the tomoe, and the shrine, and move them around so that we can see that they're actually separate objects, completely free of any visual distractions around them from the resource image. One thing to notice is we have a black square and we have some actual objects that are pure black. This may cause problems in upcoming steps, so my recommendation to you is the following. For all three of your layers, I want you to go right here to this little FX symbol. It's called a layer style. And for each one of these objects, we're going to make them appear more as a silhouette. We're going to choose color overlay. The color you choose is really irrelevant other than the fact that it should be something other than black, something that will stand out against black and white. It seems like I have this orange selected, and if you take a look at the temple, you can see it's just becoming a very flat, simple silhouette. We want to make it understandable that way just for the sake of understanding. So I'm going to take that same setting and apply that same color overlay to all three layers. The color is not important. There's no need to be using different colors for each layer. But this is going to help you see these objects as more simplified representations of the objects that they stand for. This is a great time for you to save the project again, making sure that all progress is saved. Whenever you do something that's very complicated, something that took a lot of time, something you don't want to have to redo, save your work. So at this point, this project is saved. We're now going to look at how it relates to these shapes and how we're going to place them relative to the black square. Our next step is going to be to take these three symbols. I'm going to call them silhouettes for now. I'm going to take these three silhouettes, I'm going to reduce them in size that they will fit inside of this black box simultaneously with no overlap. Because I'm going to be focusing inside of the black box, the first thing I'm going to do is take all three of these objects and actually place them so that they're overlapping the black box. Again, the color is irrelevant. So the fact that they're all orange and they're hard to read right now is not a problem because remember, I can always turn off these layers and make them visible one at a time. I'm pressing Command plus to zoom in. I want to see this black box. That's my key thing. Coming to the shrine first. There it is. I can see the whole thing. And the thing I want to do is I want to make it smaller than this black box. Because we have our guides, my recommendation is you want to make it smaller or small enough that it fits entirely inside of one of these four quadrants to begin with. To do that, we will go to the shrine layer, make sure it's active, see how it's now highlighted. Edit, transform, I'm going to choose scale. And when I do that, you're going to see that a box appears around the perimeter of this silhouette. That box is going to be how we control the size of the shrine. The most important thing to remember is that we're going to work from the corners, not the sides. And I'm going to hold the Shift key so that when I scale this down, it's proportional. I'm letting go of the corner first, then the Shift key. If I don't hold the Shift key, I can make this thing into a lot of unusual and unrecognizable sizes. If that happens on accident, press Command Z. So again, I'm going to hold the Shift key. I'm going to shrink this down. I'm looking at the width right now to see that it fits inside of one of the quadrants. Once I'm satisfied with it, I'll press return. The box goes away. I'll come to my amulet, edit, and it won't let me transform because I'm not on the correct layer. So now it's the layer I can see and it's the layer I'm working on. Shift key fits inside the quadrant. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I'm pressing the command key and minus, edit, transform, scale, holding the shift key so it stays as a perfect circle. Command plus, I'll zoom in, drag it up here, it's still too big. I looked at the upper left-hand corner to figure out placement. Coming to the bottom right, holding the shift key. It's small enough for now. I now have all three of my objects fitting within those boundaries. The next part of the puzzle is that we're going to need a fourth element. In my case, what I'm going to think about is the faith, the religion that I'm using is Shintoism. So I'm actually going to come here to the type tool, and I'm going to click and draw a box in this fourth region. I'm going to pick a particular font. I'll take Book Antiqua for right now. And I'm going to choose the letter S as a capital S. We can't see it right now because my color is black. If I press Command A, just like in Microsoft Word, I'm going to click on that black box to define a color. And just to be consistent, I'm going to drag over to one of my silhouettes, click on that same orange color, say OK, and my letter S is the same color. It's still tiny. Edit, transform, scale. I could do that, but instead what I'm going to do is, just like in Microsoft Word, I'll highlight it. I want to make sure it fits inside of this box, no larger. Right now it's 70 point. I can't go any larger based on this scale here. But if I click and hold on the letter T here and drag to the right, you can see that my S character is getting larger. That's adequate. I'm fine like that. It is a text layer, just like we did when we brought in these other three images though. I'm going to go to Layer. I'm going to make it into pixels, this time by choosing Rasterize and Type. So now that symbol that was here is gone, and now we can see these as four objects that we're ready to apply to making our actual design, where we're going to be inverting positive space and negative space, taking black regions into the white regions. So at this point, we're now ready to start looking at how these four objects can be part of a composition. The composition has to be enclosed inside of this black square. These four shapes may not overlap or touch one another in any manner. So the key to this is thinking about how these objects can change in terms of scale, which we've covered already, or rotation, which we'll cover in a moment. To make this process go a little bit faster, because we're going to be jumping between the four shapes, I'm going to switch back to the Move tool, and I'm going to make sure that this Auto Select box is checked and that the option here says Layer. So if you watch the Layers panel here, when I go from the letter S and I actually click on the triple tomoe, it becomes active. When I click on the shrine, you can see it becomes active. When I click on the amulet, it becomes active. The other thing I'm going to experiment with is, for example, for the letter S here, edit, transform, and rotate. My thought is that for some of these shapes, they may be more interesting if they are rotated in some fashion and then placed so that some portion of the object is just touching the edge of the box. Again, I'll hit return because I like how it looks for right now. But otherwise, I'm going to now fast forward through the process of arranging these 4 shapes as a composition inside of the black square without the 4 shapes overlapping. Each shape must touch one of the 4 sides without crossing over the edge. In the case of the shrine, I'm actually going to come directly to the edit menu. I'm going to say transform, and I'm going to say rotate 90 degrees clockwise. Instead of actually doing the work of trying to make a perfect 90-degree rotation, I'll choose that option so that I can place it exactly where I want it and make sure that it's perfectly perpendicular. When trying to align an object along an edge, if we zoom in closely, with the Move tool activated, I can actually use the arrow key to move it very slightly along an edge like so. I can also use the Shift key to click and drag and move something perfectly horizontally or perfectly vertically, whichever direction you drag in first. Press the Shift key, then click on the object and drag it. Release the mouse or trackpad, then let go of the Shift key. Again, all shapes are composed. None of them are actually touching or overlapping one another, and they're all touching a respective side of the box. I'll just do this last little thing to really make as much use as possible of the negative space. Maybe I'll even do this and this. And again, I'll save before moving on to the next step.